Hi, and welcome back to Joel's DIY. So it's been about a year since I finished this DIY project that actually took me a couple of years to finally complete. Couple of changes. You probably noticed that the pick guard went from a clear back to that black one that I wanted. What ended up happening is that the clear had a lot of bubbling. It's kind of hard to explain, but it had some kind of reaction with the clear coat that I had put on there, so it ended up looking kind of ugly. So I ended up just deciding to go back to the black pick guard, which looks great. I mean, I think actually it looks really nice with the guitar. Playability was still kind of a problem until recently when I started messing with the truss rod. I had the guitar. There wasn't enough relief into in the guitar neck. I think it was too much of a back bow. So I ended up having to adjust that. And I also ended up being able to get this thing to finally not buzz at all. So I don't know if you can see that, but if it was buzzing at the first fret, and now all the buzzing is gone. Even though the action's a little higher, but I think I can live with that. So, I mean, for all intended purposes, the guitar is functioning correctly the way it should. But the reason I'm making this follow-up video is because it's all has to do with aesthetics. So I mean, the top is okay. I mean, it looks nice, and probably the camera's picking it up that it's nice. But there is a lot of grain showing underneath the finish, so it's not really a mirror finish. I mean, it's glossy, but you still got a lot of grain, and that's my fault because I probably should have used grain filler. But I'm not really happy about that. I'm trying to see if I can do something about that. And my control plate is a little I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but the control plate is a little bit kind of hovering over the body, so I'm probably going to try to fill in those holes, and maybe put a couple of dowels in there so I can actually get this more flush with the body. So there's that. But my biggest problem is the back. So originally I was kind of mentioning that I would be happy with just kind of like a relic type of look for the back. The more I play with this Telecaster body, the more I'm starting to see that I would like this to be a lot better than what it is. It was supposed to be kind of a mahogany color, but I'm not quite happy with just the aesthetic of it, even though it kind of looks aged or whatnot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strip the back, and we're gonna strip it down back to regular wood, and then I got a different stain that I'm gonna use. And hopefully I'll get a better color that kind of what I want. I want the natural grain showing, even if it's imperfect. I want that. I also want to do a little bit something about this. I was never happy with this, and it's probably my fault because this is kind of a very sharp edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to try to contour it a little bit more, and that way I don't have to deal with that when I'm buffing or polishing. So I'm probably gonna try to work on that. It wouldn't hurt me at all to get a wood filler and make it a little bit more evened out. So we'll do that. So the first step is probably gonna be disassembly. So I'm gonna get to work on that right away. Okay, so unfortunately my camera shut off, ran out of battery, uh, right right at the moment where I was about to remove the pickups. As you can see, I mean, it is terrible. I mean, it's my fault. You know, I was kind of trying to jump the gun last year to try to finish this project, so I didn't let this cure long enough. So the plan is that I'm going to go ahead and just sand this level and hit it up with a couple more coats of clear. That way the finish is a little bit more respectable, and also this time around I let it sit there and cure for a little longer, especially in this nice July heat. You know, the back, you know, that's the back of the guitar. One thing I wanted to mention is I was able to fix those holes. I was able to plug them and then add some dowels, and I laid down some glue on there. So I'm hoping that by the time this is wrapped up, I can re-drill the holes, and those holes won't be stripped. And I was able to fix that one right there as well, even though there's a little tiny gap there, but I'll probably fill it in a little bit more, maybe with some sawdust and glue. Yeah, this bridge is terrible. I mean, as soon as I took it off, it yanked most of the clear on there, and even some of the stain that I had laid down there. So I'm gonna have to fix that. I was able to remove all the shielding that I put down previously, and the shielding here, I think I'm just gonna leave it. If it does get nasty in there, I'll probably have to just rip it all out and install new shielding, but that will be ahead of time. I was always able to fix the control cavity, the hole for that cover. So it was just not able to catch. There was not enough material there for the screw to catch. So what I just did is I moved up the control to a little higher, and I used the original hole, which required me to cut out the pick guard, which I'm going to show right here. So basically I just had to trace around the area where the control is, and I just cut it out. I'm probably going to work a little bit more on sanding that a little bit smoother, but for now I'm just going to leave it like that. So that now works perfectly well. So the next step will be sanding down and leveling this flat, and also removing this color and the finish that's on there, and hopefully get a chance to show you how I cover this up with some wood grain. So here I have the body ready to be sanded down. I'm going to go ahead and just start with the top. This is going to be a little bit more complicated. I probably have to get some kind of stripper, or if not, some kind of heat to take off some of the finish. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and attempt to sand this all flat. What I'm going to be using is 220 grit sandpaper, just to see if I can get it all evened out. Hopefully I don't take anything off the color, but my hopes is just to try to get this as even as possible. I'm not going to go too crazy on it. I can see that, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I can kind of sand down, you know, enough of the clear I can sand down to kind of even it out, hopefully. All right, so here goes nothing. Okay, so in this lighting you probably won't be able to see much of a difference, but I was able to sand down a lot of the raised parts of the clear that had gotten pushed up because of the hardware that I installed. So originally the plan was to spray this one more time, but being that I was able to sand this down pretty flat, and I mean there's a couple of areas like right there that are kind of sunken in, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. But once I decided to test a part of the guitar to see if I really needed to put another coat, and what I did is I just polished it, and as you can see right there, I mean it's not perfect by any means, but I mean it's I'm content with it. Like, I don't think I need to go out and spray this one more time. I mean, I guess I could, but you know, I don't think that the imperfections like that deep gouge right there will go away. I feel like as long as the finish is pretty reflective, I'll be content. I think my mistake that I'll probably always regret is not putting any grain filler in here, because if I'd have done that, I probably would have had a nicer, clearer finish without these little imperfections. But you know, I'm content with the way it's going to look. Plus, those areas that look gouged right now will probably be covered up by the pick guard, so it won't be too bad of a deal. I probably will go ahead and put in a little bit of color here just to kind of fix that a little bit. Okay, so I kind of jumped the gun and I just decided to start sanding it, and eventually I was able to get it down to bare wood. The edges I went ahead and sanded down, so give them more of a contour. That way when I start sanding this for polish, I won't burn through. I think the edges were just too sharp, and that's probably why I was getting a little bit of burn through there. So I went ahead and just sanded everything down. I even you know, smooth this out, make sure that there wasn't any sharp edges there. Removed any sharp edges on the side. And in the belly cut, I definitely worked on making sure that there was no sharp edges there. The contour, you could actually barely notice it without the stain. So, and then the side, I also contoured it a little bit more, making sure there was no sharp edges. There's the back view. So I really took my time. I mean, sanding it all down by hand mostly took me about an hour and a half, but I'm very happy that I got it down to bare wood. So the next step is I'm just gonna go ahead and put in the grain filler. I'm gonna go ahead and show you what I got. I've used this before, but I've actually used the pink one, which gives you, when you apply it, it looks pink. But then as it dries up, it'll go ahead and start looking like regular wood color. I just decided to use this. I'm probably going to use the whole container. I'm going to go ahead and start filling in the grain so that we don't have that same problem that we had last time where a lot of the grain was showing. So I'm going to coat it with grain filler, then I'm going to let it dry for 24 hours, and I'm going to come back and sand it down. And then once we have that, then hopefully it's ready to be stained. I'm going to go ahead and stain it with this. This is red mahogany stain. I'm gonna probably do a test piece before I try doing this. This is probably the way I should have gotten from the beginning, just regular stain and then gloss over. But you learn from your mistakes. So hopefully this will be the last time I ever have to stain this. Shh. Calladito, eh? All right, so here's the end product. And as you can see, I mean, we went from a pretty smooth body to kind of rough surface, but that's okay because I'm gonna sand all this off tomorrow. So one thing I learned about using this stuff is that this stuff is like spreading peanut butter on a guitar. I mean, it has no give. You know, I'm like trying to put this stuff and it's just piling up everywhere. And what I ended up just doing is putting a little bit of water in there and kind of mixing it up with the water, and then it was a lot easier to apply to the whole body. Okay, so we're here the very next day. So again, I kind of jumped the gun and I didn't really actually film this, but I got a chance to completely strip the back from that old finish that it had. I was able to also lay down some wood filler. It looks like it worked very well because I think the surface is very soft and even when I put it at an angle. I don't see any gouges or anything. So I think we're ready for the staining. So here's the deal. I couldn't really make up my mind. Yesterday I purchased this red mahogany stain and I decided to test it, and I got this color basically. And I kind of looked at it, and it is a nice color. I mean, and you know, kind of pairing it with, actually this is probably more of the way it's going to look, but actually pairing it with this, although it's a nice color, I don't think it's going to be better than the mahogany stain that I wanted to use the last time, which was this. I should have actually used this last time. This is just, you know, gel stain. That's the only difference between these two. And I think, you know, this will probably give me the contrast that I really want. And I stained this yesterday, and I also sprayed it a little bit so I can kind of see with the gloss. And I'm kind of convinced that I'm gonna just go ahead and go with the mahogany that I wanted to do in the first place. So the only thing I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go ahead and tape this up to kind of cover up the binding. It's not really a necessary step because you could just scrape it off with a razor, but I just don't want to go through the trouble of, you know, going through this with a razor and possibly gouging the binding. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tape it up, and then we'll go ahead and start staining with this, and we'll see the result. So that's ready to go. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and get a couple of cloths, some gloves that I like to use to stain because I don't like getting that stuff all over my hands. It's just kind of a pain to take off later on. And then we'll start laying down the first coat of stain. So here we go. Okay, so after a couple of coats of stain and going back and kind of clearing up all those parts where I put too much stain, this is the end result. I'm kind of content with it. I mean, it's as good as it's gonna get. And it's definitely an improvement from the other time that I sprayed this and left it the way it did. I'm happier with the way it looks right now. So basically the next step is going to be to spray this with a clear coat. Just wanted to show you one last time before I spray this thing. But if you ask me, I mean, it definitely looks better than how it was before. Okay, so this is after about 3 different coats of clear. And I have to say, this is like 100% improvement. You know, obviously there's some orange peel right now because it'll happen with you know, the coats as they get thicker and thicker. But I am very happy with what the result is so far. I mean, the last time I really did not like where we were at with the back, but now I'm very, very happy with the way it is. There's going to be some sanding required because I mean I could already see a couple of drips here and there, but I don't mind it because I think the end result will be worth it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to wait for this to dry a little bit out, and I'm going to use up the rest of this, and then once I'm done using this, I'm going to go ahead and sand it down. I think the important part is having to wait between the time that you sand to get everything flat again and then to add that extra coat. So I will use up probably this entire spray can, and then I'll let it cure for a couple weeks until it gets pretty hard, and I'll sand it down again, and then hopefully I'll have a nice flat surface, and then I can sand and polish. So okay, so it's been about a month of letting this cure. Have a good look at there. So that is pretty much completely cured. You put your finger on there, you're not gonna leave any prints like you would have when I first sprayed this about a month ago. So I think we're ready to start working on maybe flattening the gloss and making a few modifications. I was able to get some conductive paint onto the cavities, so now everything is shielded and I don't have to worry about putting that aluminum tape there. So we're on the clear on that. Originally I had this top loader bridge where you would string it from the top with the roller saddles that I got this, and that was working fine, but I've basically had my mind set on making this a string through just because I want to make it the way I intentionally wanted to make this. So remeasuring the bridge and the neck, I figured out that with these new saddles, these right here, I should be able to pull that off. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a mod where we're gonna do the holes to go through the body in here and out the back, which is going to require me to put some ferrules here in the back, and I do have those ferrules right over here. So I ordered these online, and these will go in the back of the guitar. But first we're gonna have to do a little bit of work. I'm gonna partially reassemble this to fit this bridge back on there and make sure that my holes are straight. And then what we're gonna do is I have a little drill press that I'm gonna bring in here, and hopefully we'll be able to adjust it so that it gives me straight holes, or the straightest hole possible. And then we're gonna drill so that we can put the ferrules in. So this is basically refitting the new bridge and making sure everything fits right. So I'll go ahead and get to it now. Okay, so I've partially reassembled the guitar. I went ahead and put on the neck. You can see right there. All right, so I fit in the bridge with the humbucker in there, and I got my string here. So I'm running it from the saddle on the high E string, and as you can see, looking at the pickups, we got a pretty good string pull right there. So I think that's gonna work. Okay, and I also measured it with the low E, and the low E also is giving me pretty good string length. So I think the bridge is centered where it is, and now it's a matter of measuring it. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so this guitar is about 25.5-inch scale length. So I'll get my ruler here and I'll measure from the nut all the way to the saddle, and as you can see, I can definitely adjust it closer to 25.5, but this looks like it's gonna work. Okay, so, and that's measuring it right down the middle. So yeah, so I don't see any problem with adding this bridge now. So what I'm gonna do right now is, now that I'm sure that it's centered, I'm gonna go ahead and start doing pilot holes, and then we're gonna bring in the drill press to make the holes for the strings and the ferrules. Okay, so I went ahead and took off the saddles. The bridge is already set. All right, so the next step is getting this 1/8 bit drill bit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the holes for the strings, but I'm not going all the way through. I'm just gonna make like a little pilot hole, I guess, pilot hole. And that way when I run the drill press, I can go just straight through where the hole already is. Okay, so it looks like we have everything all set up with the drill press, but I definitely ended up running into a problem that I wasn't expecting. There's not enough clearance on the guitar body or on the drill, I guess the drill base, for me to be able to drill all the holes all the way through. That's a bummer, because I was hoping the drill press would make everything very easy. But now I see that that's not going to be possible because just of the way the drill press is shaped. So What I am going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to drill at least the hole on one side and the hole on the other side. And what I'll have to do is I'll have to figure out a way to, if I'm going to drill through, to keep the drill as straight as I can. Okay, so this is the idea that I got. I made this out of the bridge from the Telecaster. So I basically got the holes that I need to drill here, and I got a place to mount this on the body. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fasten these screws on the body, probably not all the way through, but just enough so that it'll hold without it moving. And that way this block will allow me to drill as straight as I can right through the body, and hopefully to the other side cleanly. All right, so I'm gonna try to drill as straight as I can. I'm gonna see if there's any way I can make that hole look not as bad. I got my drill here, and I got basically the exact width of the ferrule and the drill bit. So this is gonna help me hopefully not go too deep. So here we go. Okay, so it's the next day, and last night I actually sat there and got ready to sand, and I was able to start off with about 800 grit. Actually, let me revert. I started off with 400 grit because there was a lot of drips, and I had to sand some of those off, and then I went back at it with 800 grit. And then I worked my way all the way up to 3,000 grit, you know. So this is the result, and I have to say that I'm very, very satisfied with how the back came out. I think the back was a complete basket case before I decided to start from scratch and sand everything off and start over again. This is a much better result than what, you know, basically the result that I intended to have from the beginning. And the front is definitely like night and day. You know, most of the grain is gone. I was able to sand most of that off, so now, you know, you basically have that mirror finish that I wanted from the beginning. So that's definitely an improvement. I mean, you still have the ugly parts right around here. You know, some of the finish came off and all that stuff, but not really a big deal because this is going to be covered up by the bridge and the pick guard, so I'm not too worried about that. So now it's time for reassembly. We're gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back with some side-by-side comparisons before and after, because I think this is a great improvement with the finish. I think the finish is definitely much more what I wanted from the get-go. All right, let's start with reassembly. All right, so the project is done. Everything has been installed right back. Everything works. A couple of adjustments were made. I ended up removing the splittable pot just because it was a hassle getting it in and out, and I started having all kinds of issues with it. I think it somehow got damaged, so I ended up putting new pots here and a new switch. It's still a three-way switch. And this fits much better into this cavity in here. We definitely have the new saddles that I got. They're still roller saddles. Definitely, it was nice to just put that Telecaster plate on there. Makes them look way more like a Telecaster than what I had before. I still have the frame or the neck pickup ring in here installed. But everything else is pretty much the way it was before. I think the point of focus here is definitely the finish. And I don't know if the light's getting this or not, but I mean, this finish is 1,000 times better than how it was the last time that I had painted it. It's cleaner. Used to still see some of the grain and some of the imperfections, but it's definitely much better than it was before. Definitely not peeling out or anything like that. And the back is probably my most favorite part of this whole redo, because now the back looks exactly the way I intended it for it to look, and there is no weird marks or anything like that, just grain, which I'm very, very happy about. So all around, I think it was a wonderful thing that I did, and most importantly, now we have, you can see right there the string ferrules. This is a string through now, because it used to be a top loading bridge, but now since I went with a real Telecaster bridge, I definitely did the neck through. I mean, sorry, like neck through, the string through. So this definitely came out very well. Some things that I'm not too happy about, and I'm still kind of working on, is when I had installed that nut, the brass nut, the nut was too low, and I ended up getting a lot of buzz, and somehow I ended up needing to replace the brass nut with the bone nut that I already had installed, and that definitely fixed a lot of the buzzing. The saddles are a little high, which is something that I had fixed last time, but now I'm gonna have to figure out, I don't know if the camera can focus very well on that, but next time I'm gonna have to figure out how I can get that to improve a little bit, because I don't like having the saddles that high. But nonetheless, I'm very, very happy with the results, and definitely don't regret taking this whole thing apart and redoing it, because now I have exactly what I wanted from the beginning, and I feel that it's a huge improvement. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and enjoy this redo of the Telecaster, the kit Telecaster DIY build. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.